you think people don't like you?
You know, I spend a lot of time talking with Canadians right across the country. I spent time this morning with construction workers, talking about the work that they were doing, building new rental units for Canadians here in Toronto. I think there is a lot of frustration with the way the world is unfolding, and that frustration is being taken out on people in positions of power. I get that. That's part of my job. But my job is to stay focused on the solutions that people are going to need, and that's what we're doing.
But what about you? I mean, we're both old enough to have seen a number of prime ministers, and I have never seen, the sticker that I saw yesterday in downtown Toronto running through the city with F. Trudeau on the back of a pickup truck, flags with your name and the middle finger raised.
Yeah.
Why don't people like you?
There is a level of polarization and toxicity that we see in a very visible way on social media and also in real life, as you point out. But most Canadians remain thoughtful and open and decent, and yes, frustrated and worried about their future. But I also know Canadians are good people who are willing to work together to build that future, and I'm part of that.
He's part of that. He thinks, I guess, that the people who don't like him are fringe radicals, the statistical rounding error of Canadians who aren't in love with him. But the polls don't reflect that, and he doesn't have a clue. He exists in a bubble. There is a level of visceral hate for Justin Trudeau that I have not seen in modern Canadian politics. The left irrationally disliked Stephen Harper. They didn't know why they hated him. I don't know if it was his hair, because it looked like it came from a Lego guy or what. But they really, really disliked Stephen Harper, but they couldn't really tell you why. Because oil sands. Well, what about them? They didn't know. Because corporate blah, blah, blah. They never actually knew why they didn't like Stephen Harper. But if you ask someone who dislikes Justin Trudeau, they will give you a laundry list. I hope you've got lots of time if you ask that question to somebody, because they'll say, the carbon tax, the gun ban, affordability, how he treats peaceful protesters, censoring the internet, how he treats journalists, how he treats everyday Canadians who disagree with them, how he has no ability to self-reflect whatsoever, how he's allowed the Canadian government to become contaminated through foreign influence because it benefited him. He's made us a laughingstock. His anti-Americanism. What do you think that's going to do for us when Trump's back in power, right? Attacks on oil and gas, attacks on Alberta, overstepping provincial autonomy, or the moral virtue signaling when it comes to LGBTQ nonsense issues. Anybody who dislikes Trudeau can give a laundry list of things that they hate him for. But if, for example, you ask somebody why they don't like Pierre Poilievre, and they'll say, his name has PP in it or whatever. It's just the dumbest stuff. It's something you'd expect from a third grader. It's very unimpressive and shallow. But Trudeau has no clue. He just has no clue why his party is plummeting in the polls. And, the Liberals, God love them for it. They didn't turf him in time. And now there's no saving them, which I love. At least in Alberta, the UCP tossed out Jason Kenney with enough time to rebrand themselves. And there were enough of them that weren't politically contaminated by being Kenney henchmen that they could sort of piece the party back together and take it in a new direction with Danielle Smith. But the Liberals, they hitched their cart to this out of control horse, and it is running off the cliff, and they can't get out. Couldn't happen to a nicer bunch. There's no possible way that they could rebrand themselves. They couldn't get a leader from within, because who are they going to trot out? Right? Who's next? Freeland? She looks like she has to check into rehab. Like, I don't know what's going on with her. Who's next? Karina Gould? Yara Sachs? They've royally screwed themselves, and I love it. They're gonna have to romance Mark Carney because he doesn't have any of the baggage that the rest of the Liberal MPs have for playing a part in all of this decay of Canada. Let's keep going. Justin Trudeau on the issue of the carbon tax. As you know, Canadians were out rallying in the streets on April 1st because they can't afford to live. And Justin Trudeau is like, well, the best I can do is tampons in the men's room. Isn't that enough for you? So anyway, they're out rallying in the streets all across the country. The young people are fleeing the party because they can't afford to live. Justin Trudeau is trying to tell you that don't worry because we're giving you these rebates, which is like a Ponzi scheme in the worst possible way. If you said this in the private sector, straight to jail. He wants us to believe that first of all, if you pay more for everything, the weather will get better. Why don't we just throw a virgin into the volcano while we're at it with this pagan nonsense? But also, if you pay more for everything and he takes the extra money that you've paid, cycles it through the hands of 1,000 bureaucrats who don't work for free and who make really hefty benefits packages, that somehow he will magically, by doing nothing and creating nothing, make that money worth more and then give it back to you in the form of a rebate. Cool pyramid scheme, bro. But anyway, Canadians are out rallying in the streets, and Justin Trudeau is basically saying that they are just victims of disinformation at the hands of the Conservative Party, who don't want to do anything to stop deadly climate change, which they keep telling me is coming, but I am not getting. It is snowing heavy upstairs, and we are the first week of April again. So let's go to this clip.
Right now, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives have exactly zero solutions to propose for any of these challenges. They are not putting forward an alternative. They are recognizing and amplifying the frustration and anger people are feeling. But they are not providing solutions in any way, shape, or form. For climate change, for affordability, he's right now blocking the doubling of the rural top-up that helps, I was going to say it's conservative, but rural Canadians across the country with a 20% increase, 20% top-up on the Canada carbon rebate. They're blocking it in the House because of ideology. They're blocking money from going to people in rural communities who often vote for them because of their opposition and their desire to play politics. Yeah, their opposition to a price on pollution that fights climate change and puts more money in people's pockets. So I'm going to focus on delivering for people. That's what I got elected for. That's what the commitment I made. And we took a very different choice in 2015 than the United States did in responding to the challenges the middle class is facing. They voted for a populist in Donald Trump. But Canadians voted for someone who's going to roll up their sleeves and deliver.
He rolled up his sleeves. That's about it. I shouldn't laugh, but that's literally all he did, is he rolled up his sleeves. Like every time you see him and he wants to be like a normal person, he rolls up his sleeves and then he's like Joe Normal, but he's definitely not. And he is basically admitting here that giving that rural top up is an attempt to convince conservative voters, he acknowledged that they were conservative voters, to vote for him. I'm a rural voter. I'm as rural as they come. I don't even have landlines into my house, and I live in a log cabin in the middle of a hayfield, okay? I am as rural as they come. Let me tell you something, Justin Trudeau. Stick that 20% top up where the sun doesn't shine. We don't want it. We want you gone. You cannot buy us off. We're not stupid. You know, I've got a 50-minute round trip to get a jug of milk. Sometimes it's an hour. That's just how I live. And I am not alone. The people who grow the food live far out of town. Where heavy industry is, it's generally not in town. The people who bring you the energy, they work out of town. We, by and large, vote conservative, and we cannot be bought for 20% top up at the expense of our fellow citizens, by the way. You cannot buy us off to sell out the rest of our fellow Canadians. Might work in Toronto. I don't know, but it's not going to work out here. And I'm just joking. I know Toronto is turning on Justin Trudeau, and I'm very supportive of that.